I still remember the first time it happened. We were at Jason's house, one of those typical suburban parties where the parents were conveniently out of town. Derek had his arm around my waist, pulling me closer as he introduced me to a group of seniors I'd never met before. "Guys, this is Scarlett," he said, his voice carrying that hint of amusement that I'd soon learn to dread. "My girlfriend. I know, she's not much to look at, but she's cool. Right, ugly?" The laughter that followed felt like tiny daggers. I forced a smile, my cheeks burning with humiliation as I laughed along. What else could I do? Derek was the star quarterback, voted most likely to succeed in our yearbook. And me? I was just Scarlett, the quiet girl from AP English who somehow caught his attention. "You know I'm just messing with you," he whispered later, kissing my forehead as we sat on Jason's back porch. "It's just a joke. You're not that bad. Not that bad." As if that was supposed to be a compliment, but I nodded and smiled because, at 16, I believed that was love. I believed I should be grateful that someone like Derek even looked my way. My mother had left when I was 12, and my dad worked double shifts to keep our small apartment. Maybe that's why I was so desperate to feel chosen, even if being chosen meant being the butt of the joke. "Hey, Fia," he'd call me, using the Spanish word for ugly he'd learned in class, thinking it was somehow less hurtful in another language. "Grab me a soda, will you?" And I would. Every single time, for 2 years, this was my reality. Walking the halls of Westlake High with Derek meant status, meant belonging. It meant never eating lunch alone or being excluded from parties. But it also meant watching him flirt with cheerleaders while I stood nearby, pretending not to notice. It meant him jokingly comparing my body to those of other girls. It meant hearing, "But you know I love you, right, ugly?" So many times that I started to believe the two concepts were inseparable, that love and humiliation somehow went hand in hand. "You're lucky he even pays attention to you," his friend Amber told me once in the girls' bathroom, reapplying her lip gloss while I tried not to cry. Derek could have anyone. "I know," I replied, because I did know. I believed it with every fiber of my being. The night of prom, I spent 3 hours getting ready. My dad had saved up for months to buy me a dress, midnight blue with silver beading. That caught the light when I moved. For once, looking in the mirror, I allowed myself to feel pretty. Derek picked me up an hour late. He didn't comment on the dress, didn't tell me I looked nice. Instead, he took one look at me and said, "Well, I guess this is as good as it gets, huh?" Something inside me cracked that night. As we posed for photos, his arm around my waist, his friend snickering nearby, I caught my reflection in a decorative mirror. I saw a girl shrinking herself, shoulders hunched, smile strained, eyes dimmed. I saw a girl who had forgotten how to take up space, and for the first time, I wondered if this was really all I deserved. I didn't know it then, but that night, that single moment of clarity, would be the beginning of my awakening. The beginning of the end of Scarlett, who was not that bad. The first breath of the woman I would become, but first, I had 2 more years of believing I was lucky to be loved by someone who couldn't even say my name without following it with an insult. Senior year changed everything. It started with small rebellions, taking an extra photography class instead of watching Derek's football practice, making friends with the art students he called weirdos, starting a fashion blog that only had 3 followers, my dad, my English teacher Mrs. Patel, and my cousin in Ohio. "What's with you lately?" Derek asked one Friday night as I scrolled through my camera roll instead of watching him play video games with his friends. "You're being all different." Different. The word felt like a compliment, though I knew he didn't mean it as one. The real turning point came in October. I'd been accepted to NYU's early admission program, full scholarship. When I told Derek, his face did something I'll never forget. It twisted, just for a second, before settling into a smirk. New York? Seriously? You think you're gonna make it in New York? He laughed, looking over at Jason for backup. Babe, you can barely handle the attention at Westlake. Those New York guys will eat you alive, if they even notice you at all. I felt something snap inside me. Not like a twig breaking, but like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long, finally released from tension. Maybe I don't want to be noticed, I said quietly. At least not the way you notice me. The room went silent. Derek's friends suddenly became very interested in their phones. What's that supposed to mean? Derek's voice had that dangerous edge I'd learned to avoid, but something was different now. I wasn't afraid anymore. It means I'm tired of being your joke, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm tired of being called ugly every day by someone who's supposed to care about me. Derek rolled his eyes. Oh my God, you're so sensitive. It's just a joke. Everyone knows it's a joke. Do they? I asked. Because sometimes I think the joke is that you're dating someone you're embarrassed by. And I'm starting to wonder why I'm letting you. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. He didn't follow me. I walked the 3 miles home in the dark, my phone buzzing with his texts, "You're overreacting. Come back. Don't be dramatic." And finally, "Fine. Be that way. You know you'll come crawling back." But I didn't. For the first time in 2 years, I slept peacefully, without checking my phone, without wondering if I'd said or done something wrong, without rehearsing apologies for offenses I hadn't committed. The next morning, Derek was waiting by my locker, flowers in hand, the cheap kind from the gas station. "I'm sorry," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "You know I don't really think you're ugly. It's just our thing." I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy I'd put on a pedestal for so long. And I saw him clearly, insecure, small, ordinary. Not a god. Not even particularly special. Just a boy who made himself feel bigger by making others feel small. "It's not our thing anymore," I said, closing my locker. "We don't have a thing anymore." "What are you saying?" His voice rose, drawing attention from students passing by. "You're breaking up with me? Over a joke?" "No," I said. "I'm breaking up with you because I'm going to New York, and I'm going to become someone amazing. And you're going to stay exactly who you are right now, forever." The rumors started immediately. I was crazy. I was ungrateful. I'd cheated on him. I was a lesbian. I was on drugs. The whispers followed me through the halls for weeks. Girls who'd never spoken to me suddenly wanted the gossip. Boys who'd been Derek's friends since elementary school shoulder-checked me between classes, but something strange was happening. With each day that passed, I cared less. I threw myself into photography, into my blog, into planning for New York. I started posting outfit photos, makeup tutorials, essays about body image. My follower count grew from 3 to 30, then 300. By graduation, Derek had moved on to dating a sophomore cheerleader. I heard him introduce her to someone at a party. "This is Megan." Hot, right? Some things never changed. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I heard my dad cheering louder than anyone. That night, he gave me a card with a plane ticket inside. I could move to New York early, spend the summer settling in before classes started. "I'm proud of you, Scarlett," he said, his eyes misty. Not just for the scholarship. For finding your voice. I hugged him tight, realizing that this was what love actually felt like. Not diminishment. Not humiliation. But expansion. The feeling that you could grow into something greater than you ever imagined. 2 days later, I boarded a plane to New York, leaving behind the girl who'd been not that bad and taking the first steps toward becoming the woman I'd always had. The potential to be. What I didn't know then was that 10 years can change everything, and nothing at all. New York City broke me open. The first year was brutal, lonely, overwhelming, exhausting. I worked 3 jobs while studying photography and digital media. My tiny Bushwick apartment had a shower in the kitchen and mice that seemed impervious to traps. But for the first time in my life, I was defining myself. I started documenting my journey on social media, not just outfit posts anymore, but raw, honest reflections about self-worth and transformation. I talked about Derek without naming him, about how we internalize other people's perceptions until we can't see ourselves clearly anymore. Today marks 1 year since someone last called me ugly to my face, I wrote in a post that would later go viral. 1 year of unlearning the habit of flinching when someone compliments me. 1 year of looking in mirrors without immediately cataloging flaws. By my junior year, my following had grown to 50,000. A skincare brand offered me my first paid partnership. I hired a professional photographer to help elevate my content, reinvesting every dollar I earned. I started a series called Reclaiming Beauty where I interviewed women about their relationships with their appearances. The summer before senior year, Vogue featured me in an article about emerging digital influencers changing beauty standards. My follower count jumped to 500,000 overnight. Brands started calling. Agencies wanted to represent me. A publishing house offered a book deal. I graduated with honors and 1 million followers. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl once deemed not much to look at was now being paid to be looked at. But it wasn't about validation through others' eyes anymore. I'd learned to see myself, really. See myself, and to help others do the same. By 25, I had launched my own inclusive beauty brand, written a best-selling memoir, and amassed a following of over 5 million across platforms. I'd been featured in Time's 30 Under 30 and appeared on talk shows discussing beauty standards and digital entrepreneurship. I'd moved my dad to a beautiful house in Connecticut and established a scholarship fund for girls from single-parent households. I rarely thought about Derek anymore. He was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. A footnote, not the headline. Until last Tuesday, I was in Los Angeles for a product launch, scrolling through comments on my latest post, a makeup-free selfie with a caption about embracing imperfections, when a username caught my eye at Derek Wilson 88. My heart stuttered. I clicked on the profile before I could talk myself out of it. The profile picture showed a man I barely recognized. Derek at 28 looked nothing like the golden boy of Westlake High. His hairline had receded dramatically, his face puffy and reddened. His bio read, sales manager at Wilson Auto. Divorced. Westlake High class of 15. Hashtag Go Bulldogs. His comment on my photo, you always were beautiful. I was too stupid to see it. I stared at the words, feeling nothing at first, then a strange cocktail of emotions, vindication, pity, amusement, and something like grief for the girl who had once desperately wanted to hear those words. I didn't respond. But over the next few days, the notifications kept coming. At Derek Wilson 88 liked your post from 2019. At Derek Wilson 88 liked your post from 2018. At Derek Wilson 88 liked your post from 2017. He was scrolling through years of my life, watching the woman I'd become without him. Then the direct messages started. Hey Scarlett, long time no talk. You look amazing. Always did, really. Remember when we used to talk about traveling after graduation? Looks like you're living that dream. So proud of you. I know you probably hate me, and I don't blame you. I was a jerk in high school. I've grown up a lot since then. Each message more desperate than the last. Each one rewriting our history. As if he hadn't spent 2 years systematically destroying my self-esteem, as if ugly hadn't been his pet name for me. I showed the messages to my assistant, Zoe, over lunch. The audacity, she said, shaking her head. What are you going to do? Nothing, I replied, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure. That night, another message came through. I'm going to be in LA next week for a sales conference. Any chance you'd meet for coffee? Just to catch up. I'd love to apologize in person. Attached was a photo of him in a suit that strained across his midsection, standing beside a mid-range sedan with the Wilson Auto logo. I sat on my hotel balcony, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline, thinking about circles and endings and the strange symmetry of life. 10 years ago, I'd been the one desperate for his attention, grateful for any scrap of affection he tossed my way. Now he was the one grasping, trying to attach himself to the light I'd created. My phone buzzed again. Scarlett? You there? Just one coffee. For old time's sake. Old time's sake. As if those times had been good. As if there was anything worth revisiting. I thought about the girl I'd been at 16, how she would have jumped at this chance for validation. I thought about the woman I was now, with nothing to prove and nothing to gain from reopening old wounds, but there was a part of me, a small, human part, that wanted to look him in the eye. Not for closure. I'd closed that door long ago. But perhaps to fully appreciate the distance I'd traveled, to stand in my power before the person who had once made me feel powerless. I picked up my phone and began to type. One coffee. Wednesday. 2 p.m. Bluestone on Melrose. I have a meeting at 3, so I can only stay 30 minutes. I pressed send before I could change my mind, then immediately called my therapist, Dr. Chin. Are you seeking validation? She asked after I explained the situation. No. I said firmly. I think I just need to see him as he is now, not as the larger-than-life figure he was in my memory. Wednesday arrived with a knot in my stomach I hadn't felt in years. I chose my outfit carefully, not to impress, but to armor myself. A cream silk blazer over a simple black dress, my own brand signature red lipstick, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Professional. Polished. Untouchable. I arrived 15 minutes late, a small power move I wasn't proud of but felt necessary. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, but I spotted him immediately, sitting nervously at a corner table, checking his watch, his phone, the door. He stood when he saw me, knocking his knee against the table and spilling water. The Derek I remembered would have played it cool, made a joke at someone else's expense to deflect attention from his clumsiness. This Derek was flustered, dabbing at the spill with napkins, his face flushed. Scarlett, he said, his voice higher than I remembered. Wow. You look incredible. Thank you, I said simply, sitting down. How are you, Derek? What followed was 20 minutes of the most transparent attempt at impression management I'd ever witnessed. Derek talked about his executive position at his father's car dealership, glossing over the fact that Wilson Auto was a struggling business in a town that was slowly dying. He mentioned his divorce in passing, framing it as mutual growth apart. Rather than what Instagram had revealed through my research, his wife leaving after catching him with her best friend. He name-dropped his high school football achievements as if they still mattered. As if anyone in this Los Angeles cafe cared that he had once thrown 4 touchdowns in a single game against Ridgeview High. I nodded and sipped my latte, studying him. The boy who had once seemed so godlike to me was just a man, and not a particularly impressive one. His suit was off the rack and ill-fitting. His watch was an obvious knockoff of a luxury brand. He had a thin gold chain around his neck that kept catching on his collar. Enough about me, he finally said, leaning forward. You're the real success story. I always knew you had it in you. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A genuine, spontaneous laugh that made heads turn at nearby tables. No, you didn't, I said, not unkindly. You told me I'd never make it in New York. You called me ugly every day for 2 years. He had the decency to look ashamed, his eyes dropping to the table. I was a kid, he said. A stupid, insecure kid who didn't know how to process the fact that the smartest girl in school was willing to date me. I thought if I kept you down, you wouldn't realize you were too good for me. The honesty surprised me. I'd expected denials, revisionist history, gaslighting. Not this raw admission. That doesn't make it okay, I said. I know, he replied quickly. I know that now. I've had a lot of time to think about who I was back then. My ex-wife, she called me on a lot of my bullshit. Made me see patterns. I've been in therapy for 2 years. I nodded, unsure what to say. This wasn't the confrontation I'd imagined. I'd pictured myself cool and dismissive in the face of his desperate attempts to connect with my success. I hadn't prepared for genuine remorse. I'm sorry, Scarlett, he said, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. I was cruel to you. I tore you down to build myself up. There's no excuse for that. I felt something shift inside me, not forgiveness exactly, but a release. The last tendrils of that old pain unwinding themselves from around my heart. Thank you for saying that, I said. I appreciate the apology. He nodded, then took a deep breath. So, I was thinking, maybe we could reconnect? Get dinner while I'm in town? I'm here until Sunday. And there it was. The real reason for the apology, the humility, the therapy talk. He wanted something from me, access to my world, my connections, my carefully built life. Derek, I said gently, what exactly are you hoping for here? He blinked, caught off guard by the directness of the question. I thought we had a connection once. Maybe we could see if there's still something there. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but a calm certainty. There isn't, I said. There never really was. What we had wasn't a connection. It was a power dynamic that worked in your favor. His face fell, the mask of contrition slipping to reveal the same entitlement I remembered. So that's it? People can't change? I pour my heart out, and you just shut me down? I checked my watch. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. I should go. Of course you do, he said, bitterness creeping into his tone. Too important for people like me now, right? I stood, gathering my purse. This isn't about importance, Derek. It's about choices. You chose who you wanted to be at 17, and I chose who I wanted to be at 18. We're both living with those choices. I placed a $50 bill on the table. Coffee's on me. Take care of yourself. As I walked away, I heard him call after me, you know, you're not as hot as you think you are. Your nose is still too big, and those videos use filters. I've seen the real you, remember? I turned back, smiling genuinely. Yes, you have. And you couldn't see her value then either. Outside, the California sun was bright and warm on my face. I canceled my fictional meeting and walked to a small park instead, sitting on a bench beneath a jacaranda tree in full purple bloom. I took out my phone and opened Instagram. Derek's latest message still sat there, sent just before our meeting, "Can't wait to see you." Maybe this is the universe giving us a second chance. I clicked on his profile one last time, then hit the block button. Not out of anger or revenge, but because some chapters need to stay closed. As I sat there, I composed a new post, no filters, no makeup, just me in the dappled sunlight beneath purple blossoms. Today I met with my past and realized something important: the people who couldn't see your worth then don't deserve access to your value now. Growth isn't just about becoming better, it's about becoming clearer about who deserves a place in your story. To the girl I was at 16, you were never ugly. You were never not that bad. You were always enough, always worthy, always complete. I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you that. But I promise to never let you forget it again. I hit post, put my phone away, and tilted my face toward the sun. The past had no power here. Only the present, and the future I continued to build. One day at a time, on my own terms, some might call it karma, that Derek now sought what he once devalued. But I knew better. This wasn't about cosmic justice or sweet revenge. It was simpler than that. It was about a girl who decided to become the woman she needed when she was younger, and about a boy who never grew up enough to deserve her.